Well, hello again, everyone. This is Dr. Lenz back talking about advanced lifestyle medicine here. Um, so, great discussion this week, and I held off on making my introduction for our next module because I wanted to see what your discussion looked like fully before I comment, because there's a couple of things that I wanted to comment on for you and give you some perspective on. Now that you've gotten into the book, and the book, again, a little bit difficult to get through, as many of you have commented on, which is great. It's a different kind of read than many of you are used to, and this is really the point of what we would like to get to in this program is to push you into an uncomfortable place so that you really expand your horizons, or expand your mind, expand your thought, your opinions, your the way you think about lifestyle medicine, and how people keep themselves healthy or want to be healthy. So there's a couple of reasons why this book is important for you to read. Again, I wanted to emphasize this now that you've gotten into this. One is that I'd like for you to recognize that there are probably social justice issues related to lifestyle and lifestyle medicine. We're going to talk about that more in just a minute, but it's important for us to get to that point. For the second reason is I wanted you to explore lifestyle being a medical explanatory framework or model for health, illness, disease. So what does that mean? So an explanatory framework or explanatory model means that there are a set of assumptions that are related to the causes of whatever we're talking about. So someone being overweight or obese, someone having diabetes, someone having heart disease, and that there's a medical explanation for that is based on a set of assumptions for those causes. So does lifestyle have its own explanatory framework or explanatory model for illnesses, for health, for chronic diseases that we're seeing? And something like obesity is an easy one to talk about. And more importantly, if there's an argument or if there's a situation or that counters those assumptions, those set of assumptions that we believe in, what does that mean for us, especially as health coaches? What does that mean? Does that mean that we completely discount what's being said or what's being written, or do we just say it's something less than what we believe? One of the things that I would really like for you to consider as you're going through this, and relative to this conversation of its own explanatory model for health and illness, is how many times think about the conversations we've had so far in the discussion sections. How many times have you said, and I mean just have you written out, I believe or I think, and then followed up by something related to personal health behavior? And I want you really to think about this, because this is really the point of reading this book, is we all have our own personal experiences with health and illness and disease. Our own personal, our family, we have our own set of experiences, and those are unique to us. That frames up our own explanatory framework, explanatory model for health relative to lifestyle, relative to health and wellness and illness. And that then forms our opinions. Each person that we encounter has the very same thing going on relative to their own experiences, relative to their own personal situation. So the point of this is that all of us are having our own experience, okay? And then when we get together, say as a health coach and a client, and we have a conversation about what are the causes, are we working off the same assumptions? That's really important to think about, because our assumptions are based on our experiences. And we can't discount our what we're hearing from other people as being untrue or as having not an effect, because it is their explanatory model versus our explanatory model. And so even if we have a health provider and a lay person, or even two health providers, as you continue to read more in the book, what you'll what you'll hopefully come to the conclusion or be able to appreciate is that each of us has our own. So we have this, what we are doing as a professional set of assumptions because we're looking at literature and we're reading information that has scientific foundation, but at the same time we're coupling that with our own personal experiences with lifestyle. Every person has their own personal experiences with lifestyle, so they have their own set of assumptions. So what does that mean when we're coaching people? This is what I would like for you to wrestle with and to come to some terms with. So getting back to why this book is important for us, one is that we need to have this conversation and a bit of an understanding about medical explanatory models of care, of health and illness relative to lifestyle. And the second one, as I mentioned earlier, is that lifestyle, is it influenced by structural violence, or is it influenced by social injustices? And so what this book is getting at, and what I want you to think about as you continue reading this is who is accountable? This is already part of the conversations we've had so far, but I want to keep this going. Who's accountable for illness or obesity? So if you are sitting with a client, and many of you have already said this, I'm not disagreeing, you can come to your own, have your own conversations about this, and we can keep this part going, but is it 100% accountability on the part of the individual? Or is there some shared accountability with something in society? Is it all society? Is it all individual? Or is there something in the middle? Is it some of both? Are there structural circumstances that put some people at a disadvantage for achieving optimal health? Okay, so let me give you a scenario. Here in Omaha, we have, like every city, we've got parts of town that are lower income, parts of towns that are higher income. In the lower income part of town, there are places where people live that first of all, they don't have a great deal of money. They don't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables, or even a grocery store that's close by. They may not have transportation. They may not have a job. They may have multiple children that they're supporting, or multiple families. They may not have a spouse, so they're doing it on their own. And maybe their only access to food is the dollar store that's down the street. It's the only thing they can get to, and they're going to buy something in a foil package for them or out of a can for themselves and their children. Are those folks, is it all about personal responsibility for them versus someone who lives in the more affluent part of town who has access to 3 grocery stores that are even within walking distance, and have a car to get themselves there, and have enough money to buy fresh fruit, or at least frozen fruit that is more healthy. So are we talking about the same situation, or is one different than the other? Is there some shared responsibility among society for keeping people healthy regardless of where we live? So some things to wrestle with, and as you continue these conversations. So this is one of the things I want you to think about as you get into the next couple of chapters here, because it's going to talk about power, and it's going to, and the authors are going to talk about superiority with people who regularly practice positive lifestyle behaviors. So do we have a sense of, if it is our notion that someone who regularly participates in lifestyle behaviors has, they're taking accountability for their own health, and as opposed to somebody who is not regularly participating. One person exercises, the other person doesn't. A person who does exercise doesn't have any chronic diseases. A person who doesn't exercise, they have obesity and diabetes and high blood pressure. Is there a blame thing going on? It's your own fault because you're not exercising. are all people on equal opportunity to exercise? It's something to think about. And do we think of ourselves as the people who do regularly practice in doing healthy lifestyle behaviors? Are they superior to those who don't? Do we give this message? More importantly, when you're coaching another person, does that come across? Do you know enough about the situation to just say, you know what, it's your own accountability, it's your own fault. There's a blame thing going on here. I told you to exercise, you didn't exercise, so it's your own fault. You have diabetes now. Is it all one, or is there something to both sides of a shared responsibility? I'd like for you to wrestle with this. It's a really difficult issue that we face here in our country in a lot of ways, but we're just doing it in a microcosm of lifestyle, healthy lifestyle behaviors. But it's something to wrestle with as you continue to move through this. And what are your views on this? You're doing the best you can. Is someone else doing the best that they can? You're not under the same circumstances, so you can't think of, you can't weigh out the same. Should you weigh out the same? I should ask it in that. I should ask you the questions instead of saying it that way. But do you look at two individuals equally ever? Should we be? The other part that I wanted to mention is a couple of times it came up that the two books that we're reading contradict each other. And one of the things that I would like for you to do as you continue reading is, if they do contradict each other, how? And as you continue on in this book we're reading now, how does it contradict the first book? Or are they not contradicting each other? Is there a place for both of these viewpoints? I want to just mention that some of this stuff is outdated in this book, or not considered in here relative to some of the data that we have to support healthy lifestyle behaviors and how that can prevent or mitigate chronic diseases. But it's something that I want you to continue to wrestle with is, do we look at health and what explains health in a siloed viewpoint, or is this broader? And this is why we led into this entire course about saying, what are the factors that determine health? Go back to that. Go back to that survey that you did on your folks of 10 people to find out what are all the factors that determine health. Is it just one? Is it just lifestyle behaviors that determine health? Or is there something broader out there? And so then are we looking at, it's just if someone is healthy versus having a chronic disease, is it related to something biomedical? Is it related to something psychosocial? Is it related to something that is lifestyle related? Is it related to environment? Those factors are important for us to consider as we're moving through this. And so this is where I want you to continue to evolve in your thinking, in your perspective about what makes people healthy. That's why we started with this point in the first module about the factors that determine people's health. That theme continues to roll through as we look now at a book that is written in a very different perspective, largely from this social side of a perspective, rather than a biomedical, or from a lifestyle, particularly lifestyle related to biomedical side. So now we have lifestyle related to social or psychosocial side. The other thing I'd also like you to do as you keep rolling through this is, graduate reading and graduate writing are both very critical in nature. So as you're reading through this, it's okay to disagree. It's okay to question the theories, the concepts that are being presented, and that's expected. It's not something where you read, hopefully you're not reading everything and saying, yeah, I accept everything that everybody is saying, because sometimes we need to be critical about what we're reading. And this is kind of where we get to in a graduate level in this way, is look at this through a perspective that makes sense, as opposed to just a narrow silo. So I invite you to read critically as we're going through this. Again, this is a theory book that we're reading right now. I just absolutely am enjoying the discussion going through. It's just fantastic, in the tone, and I invite you to continue to deeply dive into what points the authors are making in the book we're reading right now, as opposed to taking a snippet and saying, well, it's my opinion that. Dive into this stuff a little bit deeper, and say, why is this the case, and start questioning what are some of the reasons for these theories, and how do they relate to this whole perspective of that we're trying to accomplish as we're going through the course, and what whole person health means, and as it relates back to the factors that determine health. So keep up the great work. I'm really enjoying how everything is going in the class so far. If you need anything question-wise from me, just let me know. Thanks.